Wooden Horse, Roaring Meg, the Paris Gun. All artillery pieces that got their names into the history books. For as long as there's been conflict, people have been trying to develop new ways of defeating each other from as far away as possible. And in the age of the siege engine, warring armies tried all sorts of ammunition to best their foes. Arrows, Greek fire, poisonous animals, dead prisoners for an early form of biological warfare, live prisoners for an early form of psychological warfare, the prophet Abraham according to various holy books, and the traditional massive rocks. But as far as we know, nobody has ever tried to throw penguins, something of which there's an obvious explanation for if you think about it. And that brings us up to today. Crazy Penguin Catapult. Yeah, I know this sounds a bit like Katie, the Penguin of Doom, so it's all silly, crazy, wacky, random, but no, this is an actual game that you can play online now. Published on the incredibly thematically specific website Penguin Games by the oddly named Digital Chocolate, Crazy Penguin Catapult is a puzzle action game where you catapult penguins into the air. Crazily. So why am I talking about Crazy Penguin Catapult of all things? I don't know, I just felt like doing it. It seemed like the right thing to do. And to be perfectly honest, I think that the review/walkthrough for this is the only level dragged on for far longer than it needed to. It's a flash game about an elephant jumping around a room. How could I get 15 minutes of material out of that? So this time I'm just doing a simple, straight, easy, fast, pass the pot from Morrison style review. And you can't stop me, comment section, no matter how much you hate me. And since a stupid long-winded introduction like this one totally defeats that point, let's just get a shift on. So in what's arguably a first for this series, Crazy Penguin Catapult starts with a cutscene. Some penguins are having a right old time, hanging out in a snowy plain. You know, doing penguin stuff. However, an aggressive intervention from some blue-bellied bears interrupts their 101 days of fun, or whatever festival penguins celebrate. So hang on, the catapult was already built. The penguins were already armed and were ready to mobilise as soon as the bears' attack began. Why did they have that? What would they need it for?
Fun. They've got a giant catapult as it's good fun. If you had ready access to a giant catapult, what else would you use it for? Fool.
But the penguins aren't using it at all until after the bears bundle some of them into a cage. Why would they have a massive, complex and, as you said, very fun-looking catapult out and not be using it? It looks like it would take a while to set up. And why would it be pointed directly away from their little settlement where they all are? It's not as if the catapult poses a threat to the penguins' houses. They're not firing giant rocks or anything, they're just firing each other. And would you live in a house that wasn't structurally sound enough to withstand the impact of a penguin?
Well, you short-sighted idiot, it's obviously to keep the bears away.
But then surely they'd have seen the bears coming and fired at them before anyone was captured. This is Netherlands-level super flat terrain. The tallest thing around is probably the catapult itself.
Maybe the bears are ambushing you, unimaginative dolts. Maybe that's why they took the penguins by surprise.
But the catapult was already pointing directly at the bears. That's not an ambush.
I'm convinced you're just trying to ruin this. You're looking for something to complain about.
I could say the same of you. Please go away.
And wasn't this video meant to be shorter than average? Look how far in you are, and you're still on the opening cutscene.
Go away! What an irritating, hypothetical man. After that timeless cinematic great, we get the level select screen. Jesus! Seriously, how many bloody stages is this? $60 bloody levels. Now 60 levels is, as you may have guessed either from my reaction or from counting, a hell of a lot. That means we've got a lot of content to enjoy, and yes, having a lot of content is great. It can make a game you can really sink your teeth into if you fancy it, but as enjoyable as Crazy Penguin Catapult gameplay is, it's not 60 bloody levels good, especially when there's no saving and you have to start from the beginning every time. Getting through them all, doing what any penguin would do, and freeing the slaves.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm
And bashing bears in the bonds is a slog after the first cage, purely because the gameplay never changes. Said gameplay is split into two different styles. I've predictably dubbed this first one the Catapult phase. For some reason, instead of just hopping into the catapult's bucket and being fired out as you might have expected, the penguins grab a rope attached to a wooden latticed girder platform thing and either swing a la Indiana Jones to the Temple of Doom or bungee jump above the catapult. Pressing space or left click slams the bucket into the penguin. An inefficient way to launch them if you ask me, but then again penguins aren't known for their knowledge of ideal mechanical propulsion systems. That's why you don't see any penguins working for NASA. Oh. If timed correctly, the penguin will fly through the gap at the right of the screen. Mistime it, however, and the penguin will smack into the wall, or the ceiling, or potentially even the floor if you really screw it up. This flattens them completely and looks painful, frankly. Judging by the animation, which is of course a stupid and needlessly overly analytical thing to do, apparently being hit by a big snowball and having your whole body crash into a rocky outcrop are equally damaging and cause the same injuries. Who knew? So yeah, the penguins aren't actually catapulted, they're shunted forwards into the next phase of gameplay. Given that actually catapulting the penguins would be more accurate, I've no idea why they don't just hop into the bucket instead of all this faffing about with ropes. Maybe this is what makes it a crazy penguin catapult instead of a boring, default, standard, ready-salted penguin catapult. I don't know. When you hit a penguin through the gap to progress, you get a message that reads, OK. Although it sounds like there should be a level above that, such as brilliant, fantastic, or excellent, there isn't one. You're merely OK at best. You can achieve no higher. Nothing like some cartoon penguins to remind you that life isn't fair and there's nothing you can do about it. Oh, and if you straight up miss, you just get oops, which adds insult to the previously established injury. I've dubbed the second phase the diving phase for an equally predictable reason. Here we see some polar bears chilling out on those perfectly square breakable blocks that platformers are big fans of. Some bears are bobbing their heads up and down, some are shadow boxing, some are eating cereal, bear stuff. All the penguins that pass the catapult phase fly in one by one from the left-hand side of the screen, and with a click of the left mouse button or a slap of the spacebar, they can dive like kamikaze worms, instantly knocking out any bears that they collide with. You've got a set number of bears to hit, and if you get the amount you need or more, you not only beat the stage, but you'll also get an impossible score, like 4 out of 3, 7 out of 5, or some other top-heavy fraction that'll annoy the maths fans in the audience.
Good one.
Looking back at the world map, you can see the levels that feature the caged penguins from the intro, which are marked with icons depicting penguins in cages. These levels start off with the same catapult phase, and by this point you'll have mastered the basics of catapult operation, so we could have skipped that, to be honest. However, once we're done with the rope swinging and the OKs, we're onto a different type of diving phase. This time, instead of a bunch of bear mooks, we've got ourselves a boss battle. And the boss is a slightly larger polar bear with a yellow stomach, which implies that he's a coward. Great, very imposing. This guy, though, is less like infamous polar bear criminal mastermind Herbert P. Bear Esquire, and more like this piece of Club Penguin concept art. However, unlike that doofy little lollipop-licking lamewad, this guy's frankly a bit normal. He's almost identical to the bears in the previous levels, he can just take a few more flightless birds to the skull. He also reminds me a bit of Arthur Shelby for some reason. It's probably the furious expression. Or maybe the bear does crack, I don't know. Hit the bear and they move below that weirdly placed row of crates. God knows what the hell those are doing there. Hit the lever, hit the bear again, and the imprisoned penguin is freed, somehow. And that's it. Barring minor differences like level layouts, we've seen everything the game has to offer, and by this point we've mastered it. You could say that we're pro-penguin gaming.
You bastard.
But what happens now depends on which version of the game you're playing. What's meant to happen is that you unlock one of the crazy penguin power-ups. That's them there on the loading screen. But I didn't. Instead, our little strolling map penguin just ambled his funky way along to the next level. I thought I might have got it wrong and I'd be able to select a crazy penguin power-up when the catapult phase began, but nothing came up and the level began as normal. The diving phase, however, was not normal. It was a complete copy of the first level's diving phase, with the only difference being that one of the bears had put on a helmet, and given that the target was only 3 bears, I didn't bother going for that one. After initially getting my hopes up with a brand new catapult phase, where the penguins decided to forego the rope entirely and just jump off the platform, safety be damned, the following level's diving phase was an almost exact copy of the second level, just with another bear having put on a helmet. The next level was an almost identical copy of the third level, only some of the bears had put on helmets. Hang on, is this all we're getting? In a game with 60 levels, I'm getting repeats after the first 10? I initially thought that I'd done something wrong or glitched the game into loading the wrong level layouts or something, but as I moved on, and on, and on, I began to think that this was what was supposed to happen, and I had 4 more playthroughs of the same 10 levels to go through, like a Mario game that only had World 1 8 times. This honestly quite dreary rerun of the first 10 levels ended with a repeat of the first boss battle. Not even the bear's stomach has changed colour. Come on, there were blue and purple in the intro. And after repeating the exact same thing again, the game ends. I'm not joking, it just slaps us with a congratulations message and the dilemma of either playing again or going to the Digital Chocolate website and playing something else. So we don't even get to see the end of the game. Hell, we don't even get to see the halfway point, although given that stages 11 to 20 were just stages 1 to 10 with very, very minor changes, it's possible that we have seen everything. So, Crazy Penguin Catapult then. What was meant to be a nice, short, easy, so on and so forth video ended up having a long and frankly quite boring adaptation to the visual arts. This is partly down to the dreariness of finding out what to say about it. Sometimes getting enough interesting stuff out of a Flash game is pretty hard, especially if it's one that's as repetitive as this. Crazy Penguin Catapult falls into a similar category to Star Fox on the Atari 2600, where the things that surround the game and my experiences with it overshadow the nuts and bolts gameplay. It's not much of a review channel, this, is it? Oh, and just one more thing. According to Crazy Penguin Catapult's Wikipedia page, yes, it has a Wikipedia page, an honour that very few Flash games were ever given. Not only did this game get a direct sequel and a ton of spin-offs, it was also one of the inspirations for Angry Birds. And that makes sense. Combine the tone, aesthetics, and, for lack of a better term, plot of Crazy Penguin Catapult and the gameplay of Crush the Castle, and you just have Angry Birds, no question about it. So Crazy Penguin Catapult isn't crazy in the sense that it's that wacky of an idea or that it has zany gameplay, but it's crazy in the sense that you'd have to be mad to play the whole thing, if that's even possible now that Flash Player has been shut down for nearly 3 years. It certainly has penguins and a catapult though, so 2 out of 3 ain't bad, unless it's 2 out of 3 bears. That's not a joke.